Okay, prehistoric art. This is where it all begins. Some people believe that the earth is really old, and some people believe that the earth is a little bit younger. Young earth people say about 6,000 years. Old earth people say many thousands. Many thousands. One of the pieces of art that we will look at today is somewhere between 15,000 and 13,000 BCE. Now, if you're in my 10th grade history class, you should know what BCE stands for.
Before the Common Era.
Okay, you're not in my 10th grade history class, but thank you for knowing. BCE, in some academic circles, has taken the place of what? Which means?
Before Christ.
Before Christ. And so there are some scholars who want to remove that Christian aspect, and they don't use AD and BC. They use before the Common Era and the Common Era. Either way, it's still divided by the same thing. What is it?
The birth of Christ.
The birth of Christ. Okay, so it doesn't really matter all that much. But before we even look at the art, we have to have a serious semi-adult conversation about nudity. Yes. Okay, all year we're going to see art from a variety of artists and eras that includes the female nude and the male nude. And that's just how it's going to be. So what do we do with that? Because normally out in the world, I think when nudity comes up, you are taught nudity bad. And so in this class, we're going to look at that differently. Let's be very honest and look at the first man and woman, Adam and Eve. Their nudity was a good thing until they were made aware of their nudity through sin. And so nudity in and of itself was not the issue. It was the sin that caused them to do something rebellious toward God. So when we look at the nudes this year of sculpture and painting, we're going to keep reminding ourselves of three words. And you've heard these, if you've gone to Caldwell for a while, you've heard the true, the good, and the beautiful. So when you look at a human representation, clothed or unclothed, you want to ask yourself, is it a true representation of how a human looks? Sometimes you're going to say, yep, absolutely, and other times, no, not so much. We need to work a chair in for
I can just grab one.
you can pull one of those, that's fine. Okay. Secondly, the question of good, is the nude that we're looking at a good thing or a bad thing? This is up for lots and lots of discussion because, like we're going to see today in one of the sculptures, it was used as a fertility goddess, we think, or something that might bring good luck for us to bear children. In these early tribes, remember that fertility was a necessity to survive. In order to keep going, we have to have children, or we die out. And so fertility there, you think, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? The good, the true, the beautiful, that sort of thing. Debatable. And then beautiful, this is totally up to you. It's subjective. You may look at the woman of Willendorf we're about to look at and say, it's a beautiful sculpture. And you may look at it and say, well, that's trash. But in this class, we're going to have a little bit more elevated conversation. And I want you to use, I think you already know what classroom appropriate language would be. And I think we also want to always recognize that none of us made the art. Somebody else did. So we defer a little bit and say, I've never walked in those shoes. I've never made that sculpture. And so I have to give a little bit of respect, even if I don't like it, to say that somebody else did a better job than I've done because I haven't done it at all. Is that clear? Any questions? Okay. Great. Let's look at the woman of Willendorf. Could you get the lights, please? Here she is. In the whole school year, as we study art, I will not ask you to memorize much. There will be a few pieces I want you to know for sure. This is one of them. Yes?
He doesn't have a face.
Well, we're getting there, if you'll just let me. The few pieces that I will ask you to memorize are key items. mean when you're 67 years old, I want you to know at the drop of a hat, what is the woman of Willendorf? Oh, she looks like that. That's the woman of Willendorf. Okay. Let's do like we did in the first class and simply point out the things we see and don't see. And so Andrew has jumped the gun and he sees no face. Why? Yep.
Because whatever God this was, he didn't have a face. They don't think it did.
Maybe? Somebody else? You must speak. Yes, Lily.
There's already something covering the face.
There is, what is this thing?
It's like a casket.
It kind of looks like a basket. It's not a bowl cut. It could be her hair. It could be a woven cap. We don't know. Okay, what else?
Does she have arms behind her back, or did they just not include arms?
Great.
I think they're like that. That's what it
Okay.
looks like.
She has very tiny arms, and they are resting on her breasts. If we were to look
Oh, I
from the
see.
top down, you would see very long, skinny fingers, like this.
Oh, okay.
Interesting face.
I just had an image, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, I'm not sorry. I had a teacher who was in, let's see, it was 7th and 8th grade, I think. And he had a great big pot belly, and she's resting her arms on her breasts. My teacher would rest his cup on his pot belly. That's what came to mind. Okay, back to the woman of Willendorf. Last class we had basic terms about composition, about line. What lines do we see?
You see more curved line.
Okay, I don't see really any straight lines. These are all curves. Kind of. Andrew mentioned there's no face. What else is missing? Sorry?
Maybe like toes and feet.
She doesn't have any feet.
I thought those were just very stylized little footsies there.
They're just punching inwards. That's how I saw it too.
Can I touch the board?
You may.
So it looks, you can tell, there's like.
Okay,
Listen, guys.
It looks like these are her kneecaps, and these are her like calves, very, and that looks like there's a foot.
Little stubbies.
Or maybe her foot has been broken off.
I don't think it's been broken off.
Seems really old.
Archaeologists would have told us there's something missing, and I haven't seen that anywhere in my reading. They all agree that she has no feet. And so she is not meant to walk, stand. This statue is only about 4.5 inches tall.
What?
This big.
Whoa, I was not
That's so
expecting
small.
that.
And so she is to fit in your hand, or in a pocket, or in a bag of some sort. She is, we do believe, there's a lot more we don't know than what we do know, because she's so old. We do believe she is probably attached to some sort of fertility, what is the word I want? Good luck charm sort of thing, yes.
Maybe you can tell her stomach is very big, and as are her breasts, she might be supposed to be pregnant, and it's like
She could be, I
well,
don't
that
think so.
doesn't look very, she doesn't look profound.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the roundedness. Her head, very bulbous. Breasts, belly, even legs, everything's very bulbous. Why?
Well, another like synonym for fertile, I guess, would be plentiful, and so I guess in that time period they thought that if you had that appearance, then you were very plentiful and could take care of yourself, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
We could go with that.
Well, I don't know about this time period, but it was like, you were seen as wealthy if you were like larger.
If you're larger, you clearly had plenty to eat.
I think they're seen as attractive, you get
Okay.
rich.
This is another one we were going toward. Maybe the standard of beauty for the day was hefty. And that has changed dramatically. I mean, culture to culture, year to year, race, all of those things play a factor in standards of beauty. What we see on the cover of magazines today is very much different to this. It's shifting though. I was in Old Navy last week, and they had a sign out front that said something about every body shape matters, every body shape is included, I don't remember. And they said, we will carry carry these sizes and not charge you more for the largest sizes. I thought, oh, they're really making efforts to include all varieties of body type. Okay? Anything else interesting about this?
It's kneecaps. Really big.
Okay, great. You're not wrong. Okay, we're going to watch a very brief video talking about the woman of Willendorf.
People love definitive answers. We really want to have a clear understanding of everything we see, art historians especially so. But people also love to make things, love to make art. And one of the oldest works of art in the world, yet found, is a small female figurine that's sometimes simply called female nude, but is still universally known as the Venus of Willendorf, a name that makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, I will forever refer to her as the woman of Willendorf. Venus comes from which mythology?
Roman.
Reuben.
Greek.
Well, Venus is Roman.
Okay, is it? Okay.
Yes, Aphrodite is Greek.
Either way, you are attaching something onto this item that would not have been attached originally. This is far predating Venus as in mythology.
It really speaks to the lens that our culture looks through.
She acquired the name Venus when she was found in 1908 in a village in Austria called Willendorf. She's only about 11 centimeters high, and she dates from about 25,000 years ago. So she's really old. And in the museum in Vienna, where we're looking at her in the Natural History Museum, they've shrouded her in darkness in a glass case illuminated from above. The outside looks like a Greek temple, and on it it says Venus of Willendorf.
And in fact, in the temple, there's a little button, because remember, this is a science museum, lots of kids, and kids love to push buttons. And when they do, the white light on the figurine turns red, and a little flute music starts. Now, of course, we have no idea if these people listen to music, what that music would have been. It's really an attempt to fill in all the gaps. We know almost nothing about her. We don't know why she was made, who made her. What we have is the figure and virtually no context. It is in some ways an anthropological object rather than an art object.
By giving her the name of an ancient Greek goddess, the goddess of love, Venus, we were assigning meaning to her, a meaning of her being a goddess figure and somehow associated with fertility.
Now, we have no reason to believe any of that is true. I suppose we do have a little bit more context, and that is, this is only one of quite a number of female figures that have been found from this era. This is during the last Ice Age, and it's some of the first figural sculpture that we've seen. What's interesting is that almost all of the sculptures that have been found have been female figures.
Okay, what do we take away from these other two examples? Yeah.
People, that, I can't even tell that's supposed to be a woman. I don't know how they came up with that. It looks like a gnome. That's the gnome of a Disney character.
Also, I need to give a quick note. I laugh a lot. I'm not laughing at you. I am laughing near you. But the gnome reference is funny because our visual influences tell us, oh, pointy cap, eyeball, big bulbous nose and a beard. But it's actually a woman, and it is the shape similar to the woman of Willendorf. Her head is cone-like here rather than bulbous.
Oh, maybe as
Her arms are also up high again. Her breasts are shaped differently, and her belly is very much like a pregnant belly, or a sort of a bowling ball almost, and her legs come very much together like the bottom of an ice cream cone. Here, a little more easy to pick out. What do we see in both of these that we didn't see in the first one? Yes?
There's more straighter lines.
Bingo, we have angular shapes. Very pointed here. Also, eyes. This one has eyes. What else?
the,
These don't have feet.
This one?
Neither.
Oh, neither of them really have feet. Okay.
feet were too hard.
Maybe feet were too hard to carve.
Or same with hands.
Sure.
They're trying to break off to trying to make that. It's got more pointy, breasts.
Sure. Once again, that could go back to beauty image, like beauty standards of the day. It could be a variety of things. Okay, let's keep going.
We should say that all the figures that have been found so far are female figures, and they're nude, but they're of different shapes. Some exaggerate the breasts and buttocks, but others are thin. But maybe in 10 years or 100 years, art historians and archaeologists will find male figures.
So all of this is guesswork. All we've got to look at is the figure itself. Let's take a close look.
She has no feet and very thin arms, which she rests high up on her breast, and she has no facial features.
That's consistent with almost all the figures from this period that have been found.
I tend to think because there are no specific facial features, she is not representing a specific woman. If we look at paintings, often they use a model, and I'm trying to copy that model. This looks far more like an idealized or a stylized abstract woman. I think in the interest of time, we could stop the video there because they're going to go through all the details we've already talked about. Any final thoughts on the woman of Willendorf? Is she memorable to you?
I mean, I'll never forget that.
I don't know other art that makes me think of this. Like, we saw those other two women, but the woman of Willendorf particularly sticks in my mind as very early, very specific. And what year roundabout did they tell us? 25,000, yeah, we see. Made out of what?
Stone.
It is stone. It is specifically limestone. One thing I read said that maybe she is the shape she is because the grain of limestone allowed for that curving more easily. So, yeah.
They might have just discovered how to carve limestone, and the guy was like really excited, so he made everything curvy.
You never know. We want to be careful with creating a story, and that's what they were saying here. We have these assumptions, but we don't actually know. And so at the end of the day, we just have her. And she was found in Austria. How interesting. Okay. Could somebody get the light, please? Next, everybody please go grab a black book on the top, or somebody just grab the stack and pass them around.
That would.
She's doing a great job. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Left one.
Okay. Now, I don't know how the rest of the year is going to go. I don't know how many of you are leaving and how many of you are staying. I don't know any of that, but I do intend to look into how to make our class a little bit more enjoyable. I have a big hot coffee dispenser thing. And so rather than coffee, I'm thinking about bringing that in, and we could all have a coffee cup, and we could have tea. And in the winter, we could have cider. And we could have people volunteer to bring things to eat. So while we look at art, it feels like this is a relaxed part of the day.
I have to see this writing.
Maybe. Okay, let's look at the book that only a few of us got. Well, there's one. Pass a few down and we'll share.
Yeah, right.
Wait, if you don't have a book, share. And we're going to be on. Page 4.
How do they even know like something about
Hey guys, together. Prehistoric Art, the beginning. Although human beings, could you read for us, Lauren, with great volume?
Although human beings have been walking upright for millions of years, it was not until 25,000 years ago
none of you are in worldviews yet, but I teach worldviews to seniors. That paragraph reveals the worldview of the writer of the book. Is that person a Christian or a Jew? Probably not. Because there's something here of the notion toward evolution, that man has evolved from one type of man to a standing, walking man. The Judeo-Christian Bible doesn't really support that. So, because we're Christian school, we're going to say, okay, next, keep going.
The first art objects were created not to adorn the body or decorate the cavity, but out of an attempt to control or appease natural forces. These symbols of animals and people had supernatural significance and magic powers.
Okay, and that we do agree with. We do have that referenced in our Bible. Talks about sexual cults in the Old Testament. These people who believed that they could use something like a fertility object or their own bodies to please the gods, the pagan gods, into giving them better weather, more children, you name it. Sculpture, could you read for us, Sawyer?
The oldest surviving art objects are sculptures made from bone, ivory, stone, and antlers, or antlers. These were either engraved by incising an outline figure with a sharp tool, carved in deep relief, or fully rounded dimensional sculptures.
Okay, it gives us three different types of sculptures there. One is an engraving. You already know what an engraving is because you could have an engraving on the inside of a ring. It's just very lightly carved into something. That's one type of sculpture. A second type is carved in deep relief, and we would have something like Mount Rushmore is a deep relief sculpture. It is not freestanding, it's part of the mountain, but it's still a sculpture. And then the third one is something in the round, and that is what we've seen here with the woman of Willendorf. You can actually look at all sides of her, and she is freestanding. It gives us the caption there for the Venus of Willendorf. I like the woman of Willendorf better. This tiny female statuette is one of the earliest known human figures. With its enormous breasts, protruding belly, and stylized round head, the sculpture is more a cluster of spheres than an individualized woman. It was probably a fertility fetish symbolizing abundance. And somebody gave us, you gave us that word or another word, but lots. You look at her and you see abundance. Cave painting, could you read Charlotte?
The first paintings were probably made in caves approximately 15,000 years ago. These pictures of bison, deer, horses, cattle, mammoths, and boars are located in the most remote recesses of the caves, far from the inhabited sunlit entrances. Archaeologists speculate artists created the animal images to guarantee a successful hunt. Many are portrayed pierced with arrows and gouges in the rock. Cave dwellers may have flung spears at the painting.
Okay, bottom of the page, you have a picture from the Lascaux caves in France. Let's have Mallory, could you read the box for us?
To create these images, cave artists used charcoal to outline irregularities in the wall of caves that suggested forms from nature. Bulges in the rock provide bulk and tonal shading with earth tone pigments and contour and perspective. The paints used were chunks of red and yellow
Ochre.
ochre ground into powder and applied with brushes or blown into the surface through hollow bones. Drawings were often superimposed randomly, perhaps because new images were necessary for each one. The images, almost entirely animal figures, were represented in two-dimensional profiles, seeming to float in space with no hint of background surroundings.
Okay, that's actually pretty important there at the end. Notice that there is no landscape that the horse is on. There's no real order either. It says that there's a horse here, there's a horse there, there's a horse here, and it was because every time they would hunt, well, I guess we need to go paint another horse. And it says also that they would use the natural shapes of the rocks, the contours, and they would say, well, that kind of looks like the back curve of a horse, or that kind of looks like the back leg of a horse. Let's go ahead and run with that. So here, early on, we see people making art. Later, we're going to have, it won't be that much later, but we will have a little bit of reading about whether or not the Bible supports the making of art. And sometimes we make art for a variety of reasons. We've said here, possibly, this art was made to appease the gods or as a good luck charm or that sort of thing. Other times, art is made simply to be beautiful. There it is. And some people look at that and say, that's useless. God would never support that. I beg to differ. I think that fits into those three things we talked about, the good, the true, and the beautiful. Okay, prehistoric treasure trove, discovery of cave art, I think. Yeah, let's read that. Could you read, Abby?
In 1879, Marcelino de Sotomayor,
Yeah, you're fine. Just keep going.
with a small daughter, returned to explore the alternate caves in the landscape. Since the ceiling was only a few inches above his head, he did not notice what was immediately above him. From the youngster's low perspective, however, she spotted marvelous beasts that appeared to cavort on the cave roof. Although Tula was showed a painting to a prehistoric skeptical archaeologist pronounced them forgeries. It was only after the French discovered similar paintings, partially pictured by millennia-old mural deposits, that Altamiro drawings were pronounced authentic. Today they are recognized as one of the most spectacular finds in art history.
No, keep reading.
The other major site of cave paintings in Lascaux, France, was also discovered by accident. In 1940, two French boys were out for a walk when their dog suddenly disappeared. They found him in a hole leading to a cave covered with thousands of engraving and paintings. Sealed in the dry underground chambers, the paintings had survived partially intact for more than 17,000 years. Once hordes of visitors tramped through the cave, however, moisture and carbon dioxide accumulated underground, and fungi crept up the cave walls, concealing images. Since 1963, the caves at Muscat have been closed to public proof.
And now we're going to see one of those paintings from Lascaux. Could you take it and pass it? Just one. Just one page. Okay, who has... That's it, just one sheet. Who has actually traveled into a cave, large or small? What is the official word for that? Starts with an S? It is spelunking. I think that's a fun word. I love caves. I grew up in West Virginia. There are quite a few in the Mountain State. Also in Kentucky and in Tennessee, I've been to a number. My favorite one in Tennessee, it was not an official state park, nothing like that. It was just on a farm. And the people I knew took me into the cave pretty near unsafe, because you're not under any supervision. You don't really know, has anything been tested, or any rocks gonna fall? You're just kind of taking your own risk. I loved it. And so this was a sizable cave for just a private, farm cave situation. And it went back, I would guess, probably the length of a football field. And at one point there was a loop, so you could either go straight, turn around and come straight back, or you could go straight, go to the left, and it would loop you back to where you had begun. But looping back through this section meant that the ground rose and the ceiling dropped. And at one point I was on a rock on my back, wiggling. And as I'm wiggling, the roof is touching my chest. And so I am literally touched on top and bottom by rock.
That's terrifying.
And wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Why?
I loved it. Some people jump out of planes, other people climb through rocks. So I thought it was a lot of fun. Imagine crawling back into a rock and or into a cave and finding, by the way, they're called cave shafts, so these little corridors that go down into the cave. Here you find these prehistoric paintings of bison and bulls and horses and men. Look at your image. I hope it copied well. Ish.
Is this the image?
Oh, yours is sad.
Yeah.
He got only one
Yeah,
side.
there's
Can you pass the-
like multiple on one
Did
side.
somebody else, Lauren, did you get only one side? Can you flip it? Yeah, so you need one of those.
No, just pass
And I'll
it.
keep this. Okay. This gives us 9 minutes. Great. First, like we always do, what do you see?
A bird.
I see.
I heard somebody start over there. Yes.
A bird.
A bird on
Stick.
a stick. A bird on a stick.
Someone could have done that now, that's really good. I like
What
it.
else do we see? I want to hear from people I've not heard from yet. Carter,
A monkey.
you see a monkey. Show me the monkey.
It's beside the chicken. On what side? Or the bird on the
Oh,
Okay, the bird on the stick, and then you're saying the monkey is directly above?
No, it's to the left.
To the left. That
It's like
is not a monkey.
Okay, that's.
that's a person.
That is a bison. That is a bison.
No, it faces the other way. The tail is the curved part.
This is the face.
I would like for you to show me how you see it.
That's the face.
Oh, that's so good. It's wrong, but it's good.
There's a weird person that looks like this one. This one looks like.
Hey, what do you think the ducks are?
Ducks.
What do you think the ducks are?
Dud.
It looks like it sprang something out of its.
Dot, dot, dot.
It could
Dot,
be
dot, dot. Dot, D-O-T,
Is it like
dots.
poop or something?
It could be some sort of waste, animal waste. We don't know.
But you know.
Okay, what else do we see? Yeah, the person in the middle, let's look at that. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a person or not, but we're
They
gonna
look
say.
like they're cockroach or something.
There is penguin quality here. Why do you say that, Sawyer?
Because of the beak.
He's got a beak. We're gonna come back to that. Why does I think we're gonna call him a man. We're going to call him a man, but why does he have a beak? We'll come back to that in a moment. To the right of the beaked man, what do you see? Giant,
You can actually see the face off.
a giant bull bison something, and he is special. There's something special about him.
What's under him?
Yeah, the under part is what I want to look at.
Oh, his guts are spilling out.
The under part. This. What is that?
That's his guts.
It's not. Kangaroo pouch.
I can see his tail. It's like-
Oh, we have a winner. So the general belief about the bison on the right is that he has been speared and his entrails are
Oh,
coming
is that
out.
what's on the ground?
Or he's been cut and his entrails are coming
Absolutely. Nice.
out. But that's how you hunt. You gotta pull the innards out.
You gotta- Oh, he's dead, he's laying on the ground. His double C, his head's like this, his other, that one's right line. He's like that.
What's that
And then
line?
in 2 minutes, probably gonna.
Maybe that's like the arrow or
It may be the
something.
spear, the arrow.
It like went and now it's on the ground. You see it?
Okay, we're getting where I want us to be. This is prehistoric, and there is a level of primitive here also. We don't have perspective, we don't have a landscape, it's just like a first grader drawing a girl, a tree, and a house. You got a man and a bison and his guts,
Okay, that's pretty cool.
okay?
That's pretty cool.
And a first grader might draw it kinda similar to this. But then we get above that primitive issue when we say, why does the man have a beak?
It looks like he's
He's a
screaming.
tail.
Oh, is his mouth open and
I hope
he's
it's
screaming?
I didn't hear what you said.
It looks like he's screaming.
Like his mouth's open instead of the beak being like this.
Okay, I hadn't looked at it that way. It does kind of look like, could be, but I think
I think he's been stabbed too.
people who look at the, scholars who look at this tend to say it's a upside down.
Might have been a map.
Here we go. Now we're getting into something, what is the relationship between bird and man? We've already got a bird on a stick.
Birds fly.
Okay. Men don't.
No, well, I mean, a lot of people idolize birds because they fly, and I know the ancient Greeks thought flight was
Oh, okay.
God.
That makes more sense than just birds
Well,
flying.
yeah.
Think about outside of the Judeo-Christian story, other tribes, people groups, religious groups, what have they to do with animals sometimes? Yes.
I know there was, what was that one god, I think it was like the Lord of the Flies, not the book, but there's a Philistine god with a bird face.
Oh, okay, I know vaguely what you're talking about, but I
That's
don't.
what the C.S. Lewis character is based off of,
Okay.
Oh,
the guy with all the arms. But I know they also worship animals sometimes.
That's where that was the simple answer I wanted.
They also ate them.
There might be a level of worship. Somebody over here mentioned maybe there's a religious attachment. We worship the bird, or we worship the man who has a relationship with the birds, or the man wears a bird mask. We don't know. Once again, we weren't there. Yeah.
Isn't there like Horus, like the Egyptian god?
Yeah. Anybody know Quetzalcoatl?
Oh, yes.
Quetzalcoatl is also a bird combined with a
Dragon.
snake.
Well,
Okay, guys, your only homework for me, you're not going to, listen carefully, you are not going to take this book. You are going to answer those 5 questions, I believe, or 4 questions. 4 questions at the end of the painting. Yeah, pass the books back around to Zoe, who did such a good job. Say what?
Okay, I think this is the arrow. That's it. What's with the bird?
You don't, be in your class.
What I'm thinking is maybe their culture, maybe in their culture they would put birds on sticks. It's like, look, this is our god now. What if like
Say it again.
instead of a fence they just had tons of sticks with
Tuesday
birds
and
on it
quiz,
to like
yes.
keep out